And in a lot of ways, the first responders have the potential and the power to be the single most effective group for intervening as it relates to bullying on our campus. So to talk about this, I want to tell you a story. When I was in middle school, I was bullied a lot. I was bullied very, very heavily. I was bullied for how I looked, for how I dressed, and a lot of that related to the whole concept of identity-based bullying, because I identify as straight. I identify as a straight person, but I've always been sort of effeminate. I've been a guy who's been seen as effeminate. And so when I was in middle school, particularly as I wasn't sure where, it's confusing when you're in middle school. I wasn't sure where I stood with my sexual orientation, but I was made fun of so much for being a fag, right? I was made fun of constantly for being a fag, and I was made fun of for how I looked, and it was rough, to where there were few days that I went home from school and was able to keep from crying, keep from breaking down. And most days I didn't want to go. I just didn't want to go to school. And all through 6th grade, it was terrible. It was really seriously terrible, and I never wanted to go to school. And I thought maybe going into 7th grade, I could kind of push the reset button, and it would start over, and I wouldn't have to worry about it so much. And so I worked really hard over that summer between 6th and 7th grade to change the way I dressed, to try to fly under the radar. But it wasn't different. I got to 7th grade, and it was no different. I was made fun of constantly, and it was to the point where I was made fun of so regularly that I told myself that I was not allowed to smile at school. I was not allowed to smile at school because that might lead to me being made fun of, right? And one of the reasons is that I've got a huge mouth. Like, I'll admit it, I have a giant mouth. And my smile, when I smile, it's like all gums and teeth, right? Like, it's huge. And now I'm really proud of my smile. I love my smile. But back then, it was a way that people could make fun of me. They'd call me horse lips, and I was all teeth and gums. And they would make fun of me for that. And so I wouldn't even let myself smile. Can you imagine that? Imagine going to school and not even allowing yourself to smile. And I remember this one day really well. Before school, I was hanging out with a couple of my friends. The names were Danny Moran and Tony Michelangelo Fuco. Longest name ever, Tony Michelangelo Fuco. And we were hanging out before school, and I don't remember, Danny or Tony told a joke, and we were all laughing really hard at whatever the joke was. And I was laughing really hard. And the next thing I knew, I turned around, and there was like a whole group of people that had gathered behind me and were there to make fun of me. And they were, making fun of my smile, your horse lips, and all teeth and gums, and so on and so on. But then it got even worse, and it got into the identity-based bullying stuff, the perception that I'm gay. And so there was the, oh, you're such a fag, you're a faggot this, faggot that, you're so gay, this and that. And it was really hard to hold back tears. It was really hard to keep from crying. And I remember it very, very well because I reminded myself, Jamie, you do not smile at school, right? Can you imagine that? You don't smile at school. That's my mindset. It wasn't like there's something wrong with those people. It's that I did something wrong by smiling at school. And as the day went on, I got back into my mindset of just sort of like, be inside of yourself. Don't let anyone else look at you. Don't attract any attention. And I remember I was standing in line to get lunch, and we were in the gym because our gym was converted into the cafeteria every day at lunch. We were in the gym, and I'm standing in line waiting to get my lunch. And I was kind of staring off into space. You know how sometimes you just lose yourself and you're staring off into space. And I realized when I kind of came back to focus, I realized that accidentally I had made eye contact with a girl named Audrey Mendez. And Audrey Mendez was the coolest girl in 8th grade, the absolutely coolest girl that you could imagine. And I had made eye contact with her by accident when I was just staring off into space. And I immediately, I looked down, and I tried to draw attention away from myself, and I realized that she stood up, and she started walking across the gym. And I thought, oh, great. Here it comes. I'm going to get made fun of by the coolest girl in the entire school, 8th grader. And she comes over to me, and she goes, your name's Jamie, right? And I was amazed that she even knew my name, but it must just be because I'm an easy target to make fun of. And she says, hey, I saw them making fun of you this morning for your smile. And I thought, oh, great. Now she's going to lay into me just like everyone else. She's going to lay right into me. And she said, Jamie, don't listen to him. You have the most beautiful smile I have ever seen. Don't ever hide it. And in that moment, I was trying to figure out how she was making fun of me, right? I'm thinking, does beautiful mean something different in 8th grade than it means in 7th grade? Like, that was my mindset. And instead, she was just affirming me. She was affirming me in my identity. She was reminding me that no matter what anyone else says, I'm okay. I'm okay. No matter what they think is beautiful, I can think of myself as beautiful. And that was an incredibly empowering message, and it changed my life. It didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like the next day I suddenly felt better and everything was great. But she planted the seed that helped me to understand that it didn't matter what anyone else said. And I started to come into my own confidence, right? I started to come into that place where it didn't matter what anyone else said. I didn't care anymore. And because I started to walk with that confidence, I started to get made fun of less, right? People started to stop that because they knew that I was confident in myself and it didn't matter. And the reality of this situation is Audrey wasn't my friend. She's, had it been my friend, I probably would have been like, oh, my friends have to tell me that. They're my friends, right? But she was just a stranger who, in that moment, she intervened. Audrey Mendez was a first responder. She was a person who saw bullying happening, and she didn't have to interrupt the bullying. She wasn't an interrupter. She was somebody who instead wanted to sort of live the change that she wanted to see in the world. She was somebody who lived by that idea from Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world. And she simply reaffirmed me afterwards. She was a first responder who came up to me and reminded me that no matter what anyone else says, I'm okay. That is the epitome of a first responder.